Have you ever just stopped, and I mean really stopped, to look closely into someone else's eyes? We've got this absolutely stunning spectrum of human diversity right in front of us. Some eyes are this deep, warm brown that almost looks black, like rich earth. Others are a pale, icy blue, or that rare, stop-you-in-your-tracks green, or even a moody, shifting gray. It's gorgeous. Into it.
Okay, so let's actually kick things off by asking a fundamental and honestly kind of strange question. Why does eye color even exist in the first place? Before we can talk about why your eyes are brown or blue or green, we really need to shift our focus away from just pure aesthetics and look at biological function. See, the eye isn't just some decorative window, it's a highly exposed, incredibly precise instrument sitting right out there on the front of your face. It's got a very specific job to do, and as you'll see, the color is really just a fascinating side effect of how it pulls that job off.
To wrap your head around this, think of your eye literally like a camera. The iris, which is the colored ring we're focusing on today, functions exactly like a camera shutter. So step 1, light enters through that dark hole in the center, the pupil. Step 2, the lens focuses that light. And step 3, it's projected onto the retina at the back of the eye, which translates all those light waves into electrical signals for your brain to process. Now, the iris is constantly expanding and contracting to control exactly how much light gets in, specifically to protect that super delicate retina. Too much light washes out the picture, right? And too little makes it way too dark to see.
Now, what's really wild is when you look at the global breakdown of the colors doing this job. Notice the massive absolute dominance of brown eyes. We're talking anywhere from 70 to 80% of the entire global population rocking brown eyes. Now compare that giant slice to the tiny fractions we see for the rest of the world. Blue eyes sit at around 8 to 10%, green eyes are incredibly rare at just about 2%, and that remaining slice covers all the other unique variations like hazel or gray. So to figure out why this breakdown looks the way it does, we have to look at the ingredients.
Section 1. Melanin, the color recipe. If we zoom way into the microscopic anatomy of the iris, we find these little cells called melanocytes, and they are busy making melanin. This is literally the exact same pigment that gives color to your hair and your skin. And it brilliantly illustrates how that coloring works. It's actually not just one single substance. It's all about a ratio. On one hand, we have eumelanin. Think of this as the dark brown to black pigment. Its whole job is to absorb light. On the other hand, we have phheomelanin, which is a much lighter reddish to yellowish pigment. The total amount of melanin you have, plus the specific ratio between those two types, builds the entire foundation for the spectrum of eye colors. The more eumelanin you have, the darker your eyes are going to be. But what happens when you have almost none at all?
Section 2. Physics, not paint. The secret of blue eyes.
So if melanin only comes in brown, black, red, or yellow, where on earth does the blue come from? Well, they're just built differently. It's physics, not paint. This is mind-blowing. But blue eyes contain absolutely zero blue pigment whatsoever. Literally none. Instead, they just contain very little melanin. The blue color you're seeing looking back at you isn't a physical substance at all. It is a complete structural illusion.
The crucial thing here is how light physically interacts with the eye. When white light hits the front part of a blue iris, which is called the stroma, the different wavelengths of light scatter. Because there's almost no melanin there to absorb that incoming light, the shorter blue wavelengths hit the tissue, scatter around, and bounce right back out to whoever is looking at you. It is exactly the same physical principle that makes the daytime sky look blue, even though the air up there obviously has no actual color. Pretty cool, right?
Section 3. The evolutionary journey. Tracing our ancestors.
Okay, so now that we know how the color is made, we have to ask why. Why did this happen? To answer that, I want you to imagine traveling roughly 200,000 years into the past. 200,000 years ago in Africa, every single early human had brown eyes, and for very good reason. Africa gets hit with intense, powerful ultraviolet radiation. That darker pigmentation in the eyes provided absolutely vital protection for those delicate retinal tissues. But then, tens of thousands of years ago, humanity kicked off one of its greatest migrations, spreading out into Europe, Asia, and beyond. They were suddenly facing entirely new climates and far lower sunlight. And then, somewhere between 6,000 and 10,000 years ago, right around the Black Sea, a tiny, totally random genetic mutation happened. That random mutation happened in a gene called OCA2. Now this gene acts kind of like a dial that helps control how much melanin gets produced in the iris. This tiny genetic alteration essentially turned that melanin dial way down, and boom, it created the very first naturally blue-eyed human ancestor.
What's genuinely astonishing here is that genetic studies heavily suggest that almost every single naturally blue-eyed person alive on the planet today actually inherited their eye color from this one single distant ancestor. Millions of people, all connected back to one person.
But that begs the question, why did those lighter eyes survive and spread? Because unlike brown eyes under the harsh African sun, having lighter eyes in low-light environments didn't exactly offer a direct, massive survival advantage. Well, scientists debate a few really fascinating theories. First up is genetic hitchhiking. The genes for eye color sit right next to the genes for pale skin. And pale skin did help early Europeans absorb more vitamin D in those low sunlight areas. So the light eyes might have just been pulled along for the evolutionary ride. Second is sexual selection. Think about it. In a prehistoric village, brilliant blue eyes would have immediately stood out. If they were rare, they were noticed. And if they were noticed, they might have been deemed highly attractive, which leads to more reproductive success. And third is genetic drift. In really small ancient European populations, random chance just plays a massive role. If a few founding members happen to have light eyes, that trait could spread simply through normal population growth, not because it was strictly necessary to survive.
Section 4. A polygenetic puzzle, beyond simple genetics.
And that brings us to a fascinating complexity in our DNA. We've got to look a bit beyond the basic genetics you might have learned back in middle school. If you remember drawing those old dominant and recessive Punnett squares, where brown always beats blue, you should know that model is actually way too simple. Eye color is polygenic. That basically means multiple different genes are all working together at the exact same time to determine your final shade. Because of this beautifully complex biological system, predicting a baby's eye color is actually super tricky. It is entirely possible for two brown-eyed parents to have a blue-eyed child. In fact, even identical twins, who literally share nearly identical DNA, can end up with slight variations in their eye color just due to tiny random differences during development in the womb.
It is just so amazing to see how nature uses this polygenic puzzle to whip up the rarest colors on Earth. Let's break down the recipes. Green eyes, which again are seen in only about 2% of people, are a mix of moderate melanin, a splash of yellowish pigment, plus that blue light scattering trick we talked about. Hazel eyes aren't even a single color. They're this shifting canvas of brown, green, and gold, all caused by uneven melanin spread out across the iris. Gray eyes have very little pigment, but they have a uniquely different microscopic structure in the iris that scatters the light differently than blue eyes do. And amber eyes, which are incredibly rare, have this striking copper glow because they contain unusually high amounts of a yellowish pigment called lipochrome. Nature is basically just a master chef, rearranging the exact same basic materials to create all of these different looks.
Now, you might also be wondering why some people's eyes seem to magically change color. First off, a lot of babies are born with blue eyes that slowly turn brown over time. Why? Well, it's because the melanin pigments just aren't fully produced yet at birth. Their genetic code hasn't changed at all, but the melanin production keeps going for months, which gradually darkens the iris. As for adults with green or hazel eyes who swear their eyes change color depending on their mood or what shirt they're wearing, that's actually all about the lighting. A blue eye beneath a warm golden evening sun is going to look drastically different than it does under a cloudy gray sky. And because hazel eyes have that uneven melanin, different patches of the iris catch and reflect light differently as the environment shifts around them.
And then, of course, we have the ultimate biological quirk, heterochromia. This is a super uncommon condition where a person literally has two completely different colored eyes, or even a striking mix of different colors pieced together within a single iris. It simply happens because the pigment developed unevenly. It can be a completely harmless genetic variation that you're just born with, or something that develops later on. Honestly, it's a stunning visual reminder of just how incredibly complex and precise human biological development truly is.
So as we wrap up this explainer today, I really want to leave you with this thought. What do our eyes actually say about the human story? Whether your eyes are the deepest, darkest brown, the palest, iciest blue, or a constantly shifting hazel, they are doing the exact same biological job, managing light and connecting your brain to the outside world. But that specific shade you see staring back at you in the mirror, that is an ancient accidental marker. It's the living result of an evolutionary journey stretching back thousands of years. It's a story of the harsh African sun, vast global migrations across continents, tiny genetic mutations, pure survival, and human attraction. Your eye color isn't just a physical trait. It is a tiny, beautiful piece of our species' extraordinary history.